The American dream was not a promise of wealth. For most, it was not a guarantee of a better life. It was a gamble, taken on a vast, empty chessboard of dirt and sky, a brutal wager against drought, against blizzard, against solitude so profound it could break a mind. For the pioneers who went west, the dream was not about finding gold in the hills. It was about surviving the first winter. Tonight, we will not tell the story of cowboys and gunslingers. We will tell the story of the quiet, forgotten battles. The battle against the unbroken prairie sod, the battle against the endless wind, the battle against the crushing loneliness of an empty horizon. This is the story of a single family and their first desperate year on the plains, a guide to the harrowing reality of the pioneer's dream. Now, before we load the wagon and begin our long journey west, and you get comfortable for the night, if you enjoy this kind of immersive exploration of the past, please take a moment to leave a like and to subscribe, but only if you genuinely find value in what we do here. And as always, I would love to know from what part of the world you are listening tonight and what time it is where you are. Feel free to leave it in the comments. It is a quiet fascination to see our community of night owls and history lovers spread across the globe. All right, the time has come. Find your most comfortable position. Dim the lights. Let the anxieties of the modern world fade away, and let us join the Miller family in the spring of 1872 as they make a decision that will either be their salvation or their ruin. The decision was not made in a moment of grand inspiration. It was born of quiet desperation, whispered in the dark after the children were asleep. You are John Miller. Your hands are the hands of a farmer, calloused and strong, but for the past year they have been the hands of a factory worker in a crowded, noisy city in Ohio. You left your small, failing farm in the east, hoping for a better wage, but you found only soot, noise, and the constant, gnawing feeling of being a cog in someone else's machine. Your wife, Sarah, sees the light go out of your eyes day by day. Your children, young Thomas and little Martha, are pale, their coughs lingering in the damp, coal-dusted air of your tiny rented room. The dream of a better life has soured. Then you see the poster. It is nailed to a post outside the general store, a splash of color in the gray world. It speaks of the Homestead Act. It speaks of a whole 160 acres of your own land, free land, a farm, a home, a future. It is a promise whispered from 1,000 miles away, a promise of clean air, of open space, of a life built with your own hands. The decision once made is a swift and brutal severing. You sell what little you own. The worn-out furniture, the second set of clothes, the tools you no longer use. Each object sold is a tie to your old life being cut. You use the meager proceeds to buy the essentials for the journey: a sturdy covered wagon, 2 strong, patient oxen named Buck and Bright, sacks of flour, cornmeal and salted pork, a plow, an axe, a rifle, and the seeds that hold your entire future: wheat, corn, and a small packet of vegetable seeds that Sarah guards like a precious jewel. The day of departure is a morning of quiet, heartbreaking farewells. Sarah's mother weeps, her hand clutching her daughter's arm, her eyes filled with the certain knowledge that she will never see her again. Your own brother, who thinks you are a fool for chasing a fantasy, shakes your hand, his grip tight, his words few. "God be with you, John," is all he can manage to say. You lift the children onto the packed wagon. You help Sarah onto the driver's bench. You take your position, walking beside the oxen. You do not look back. To look back would be to let the doubt, the fear, the immense gravity of what you're doing overwhelm you. You keep your eyes fixed on the road ahead, a long, dusty path leading west, towards the empty horizon, towards a dream that feels, in this moment, both terrifying and absolutely necessary. The journey has begun. The first few days are a blur of muddy, rutted roads, small towns that look just like the one you left, and the familiar green landscape of Ohio. But then, day by day, the world begins to change. The trees become scarcer. The hills soften and then disappear, melting into the horizon. You have reached the Great Plains. It is like nothing you have ever seen before. It is an ocean of grass, a vast empty expanse that stretches in every direction, seemingly forever. The sky above is immense, a huge blue bowl that seems to press down on the tiny, insignificant dot of your wagon. There are no landmarks here. No familiar hills, no winding rivers, no church steeples to mark your progress. There is only the sun, the wind, and the grass. The journey becomes a slow, grinding, and profoundly monotonous routine. Every day is the same. You wake before dawn, the air cold and sharp on the plains. You yoke the oxen, buck and bright, their movements slow and patient. Sarah makes a simple breakfast over a small fire made of dried buffalo dung. The only fuel available here, a thin cornmeal porridge and bitter, boiled coffee. The children, still sleepy, eat in silence. Then you begin to walk. You do not ride in the wagon. The wagon is for the supplies, for Sarah and the children when they are tired. You walk. You walk beside the oxen, your hand sometimes resting on Buck's broad flank, the feel of his warm, coarse hide a strange comfort in this vast emptiness. Your entire day is measured by the slow, plodding rhythm of the oxen's hooves and the constant, grating creak of the wagon wheels. Creak, plod. Creak, plod. The sound becomes the soundtrack to your existence. The sun climbs in the vast sky, beating down on you without mercy. There is no shade. The heat is a physical weight. Sweat trickles down your back, and the dust of the trail cakes your skin, creating a gritty, uncomfortable film. The landscape does not change. For days, for weeks, it is the same. An endless sea of grass, swaying in a wind that never, ever stops. The wind is a constant presence. It whispers in your ears, it pulls at your clothes, it dries the sweat on your skin, and it seems to carry with it a profound and ancient loneliness. Sometimes you pass other travelers, other wagons heading west, their faces grim and determined, just like yours. You exchange a brief, weary nod. There is no long conversation. Everyone is trapped in their own bubble of toil and hope. Sometimes you see a herd of buffalo in the distance, a great dark moving stain on the prairie, a reminder that this land is still wild, still untamed. The days are long. The nights are longer. At dusk, you make camp. The routine is always the same. Unyoke the oxen and let them graze. Start a fire. Sarah prepares another simple meal. You eat as the sun sets, a spectacular, fiery display of orange and purple that paints the entire sky. It is a moment of breathtaking beauty in a day of grueling monotony. After you eat, you sit by the fire. The children, exhausted, are already asleep in the back of the wagon. You and Sarah do not talk much. You are too tired for words. You simply sit watching the flames, listening to the lonely cry of a coyote in the distance. The stars come out. In the clean, clear air of the prairie, they are brighter than you have ever seen them. A cold, glittering blanket of diamonds thrown across a black velvet cloth. They're beautiful, but they are also alien. They are not the familiar stars of your home. They reinforce your sense of being in a new and foreign world. You sleep under the wagon, the hard, unforgiving ground your bed, the great, silent sky your roof. And in the morning, the cycle begins again. The wakening in the cold, The yoking of the oxen, the simple meal, and the walking. Always the walking. Into the endless, unchanging, and soul-crushingly vast ocean of grass. After weeks that have blurred into a single long memory of dust and motion, you arrive at the land office. It is a small, lonely wooden building in a fledgling settlement, little more than a collection of rough-hewn shacks. Here you present your papers. The land agent, a man with a tired, bureaucratic air, consults a large gridded map. He finds your parcel, a square of land identified only by a series of numbers. He points to it on the map. Section 14, Township 22, Range 6. To him, it is a box on a piece of paper. To you, it is your entire future. He gives you directions, simple and vague. Head west for 2 days. You'll cross a shallow creek. Your land is a mile north of there. There's a single, lightning-scarred cottonwood tree near the southern border. You can't miss it. You thank him, your voice a hoarse whisper. You restock your water barrels, buy a few last-minute supplies, and leave the small outpost of civilization behind you. The final 2 days of the journey are different. There is a new sense of purpose, of imminent arrival. You're no longer just traveling, you're heading home, to a home you have never seen. You find the creek, as the agent said, a shallow, slow-moving ribbon of water in the vastness of the prairie. You cross it, the wagon wheels sinking into the soft mud of the banks. You then turn north. Your eyes are now constantly scanning the horizon, searching for your landmark, the lightning-scarred tree. The hours pass. The sun is high. The land is empty. There is nothing but grass and sky. A sliver of doubt, cold and sharp, begins to creep into your mind. Did I pass it? Did I take a wrong turn? In this featureless landscape, a single mistake could leave you wandering for days. Then Sarah points. Her voice quietens. John, look. You follow her gaze, and you see it. In the distance, a single, solitary tree, its upper branches splintered and blackened, a stark, lonely silhouette against the immense blue sky. It is the only vertical feature in the entire landscape. It is your landmark. You have found it. You guide the oxen towards the tree. As you draw closer, a profound and deeply unsettling silence seems to fall. This is it. You have arrived. You stop the wagon near the base of the old cottonwood tree. You unyoke the patient oxen. The children, Martha and Thomas, climb down from the wagon, their small legs unsteady after a day of being jostled. They look around, their faces a mixture of wonder and confusion. You stand beside the wagon, your hand resting on the warm canvas cover, and you survey your new kingdom. 160 acres. The words had sounded so grand, so full of promise back in Ohio, but the reality is almost terrifying in its simplicity. It is a vast, empty square of land. It is not a farm. It is a canvas of untouched, untamed prairie. The grass is tall, thick, and matted, its roots so dense they have formed a solid, impenetrable sod over centuries. There are no fields, no fences, no barn, no house. There is nothing. Nothing but the endless grass, the immense sky, and the constant whispering wind. You are utterly and completely alone. The nearest neighbor, if there is one, is miles away, an unseen dot on the horizon. There is no village, no church, no general store. There is only you, your family, a wagon full of meager supplies, and this vast, silent, and profoundly intimidating piece of earth. Sarah comes to stand beside you. She says nothing, but you feel her hand find yours. Her grip is firm. The sun is beginning to set, painting the sky in those same brilliant shades of orange and purple you have seen every night of your journey. But tonight, the beauty is tinged with a deep and humbling fear. The dream is over. The work is about to begin. The first night on your own land is spent under the wagon. It is a restless, uneasy sleep, punctuated by the strange new sounds of the prairie, the lonely cry of a coyote, the rustle of some unseen creature in the tall grass, and the ceaseless whispering song of the wind. You wake with the dawn, the sky a pale, soft gray. The first task is not to plant, not to plow, but to build. You need a home, a shelter against the elements before the weather can turn against you. There are no forests here, no great trees to fell for logs. The only building material the prairie offers is the land itself, the thick, dense sod beneath your feet. You are going to build a house of dirt. The work is brutal, relentless, and unlike any farming you have ever done. First, you must choose the location, a slight rise in the land to protect against the rare but violent rains. Then you mark the dimensions of your future home. It will not be large. A single room, perhaps 10 feet by 12, is all you can manage. You take your new plow, its iron blade sharp and clean, and you begin to break the prairie. This is not like plowing the soft, tilled earth of the east. The prairie sod is a solid, tangled mass of grass roots that have grown undisturbed for 1,000 years. It is as tough as leather. The oxen, buck and bright, strained against their yokes, the great muscles bunching, their breath coming in steamy clouds in the cool morning air. You shout encouragement, your voice raw, as you grip the handles of the plow, trying to keep the blade cutting in a straight line. Slowly, painfully, you begin to peel back the skin of the earth, turning over long, continuous ribbons of sod. These are your bricks. You use your axe to cut these ribbons into manageable blocks, roughly a foot wide and 2 feet long and several inches thick. Each block is incredibly heavy, a dense, solid weight of earth and roots. Now begins the true labor. You lift the first sod block, your back straining with the effort, and lay it down to form the base of your first wall. Then the next, and the next. It is the work of a bricklayer, but your bricks are made of dirt. You lay them grass-side down, staggering the joints as a mason would, building the walls up layer by layer. The work is slow. It takes you an entire day of back-breaking labor to raise the walls by a single foot. Sarah and the children help where they can, carrying the smaller blocks, bringing you water, but the heavy lifting is yours alone. Day after day, the process repeats. You wake, you plow, you cut, you lift, you lay. Your hands become raw and blistered. Your back is a constant screaming ache. The sun beats down on you, but slowly, miraculously, a structure begins to rise from the empty prairie. The walls of your home, made of the very earth you stand upon, grow higher, inch by inch.
You leave spaces for a single door and one small window. For the door frame and the roof beams, you must use the precious wood you brought with you in the wagon, the few planks that were meant for a proper floor, a proper bed. You realize, with a heavy heart, that such luxuries are a distant dream. Survival comes first. The roof is the greatest challenge. You lay a ridgepole, the single longest timber you have, across the top, and then lay smaller branches and brushwood over it. On top of this, you lay more sod blocks, this time grass side up, hoping the roots will continue to grow and hold the roof together. After weeks of relentless, spirit-crushing labor, it is done. It is not a house, it is a hovel, a small, dark, earthen box, sitting alone in a sea of grass. But it is a home. It is shelter. It is yours. You move your few possessions inside. The interior is dark, even at midday, and smells of damp earth. The floor is the same packed dirt as the prairie outside. There are no internal walls. It is a single small space for all of you to eat, to sleep, to live. But when the wind howls that night, you are not sleeping under the wagon. You are inside your own four walls, and for the first time since you arrived, you feel a small, fragile sense of security. Now that you have a roof over your head, the true work of building a life begins. A house is not a home without the means to sustain yourselves. The vast, empty prairie that surrounds your small sod shelter must be tamed, transformed from a wilderness into a farm. Your first task is to secure a source of water. The creek the land agent mentioned is a mile away. A 2-mile round trip carrying 2 heavy wooden buckets is a grueling task that must be done every single day. The water is essential not just for drinking, but for cooking, for washing, and for the small vegetable garden that Sarah plans to start. You make that long walk in the morning and again in the evening, your shoulders aching from the weight of the yoke, your path a thin, dark line that you slowly beat into the tall grass. While you are fetching the water, Sarah and the children begin the work of creating a garden. Close to the house, they clear a small patch of land, not with a plow, but by hand, using a simple hoe and their own fingers to pull up the stubborn prairie grass and its tangled roots. It is slow, painstaking work. They find the earth beneath the sod is dark and rich, a good sign. Sarah takes out her most precious possession, the small, carefully wrapped packet of seeds. She plants them with the reverence of a priestess performing a sacred ritual. Beans, squash, corn, and a few hardy root vegetables. This small garden is their best hope for surviving the coming winter. Meanwhile, you must begin the most difficult task of all, breaking the prairie for a proper field. The small patch you plowed to build the house was a mere taste of the effort required. Now you must plow a full acre, then another, if you are to have any hope of a wheat harvest next year. Day after day you are out in the field with Buck and Bright. The process is a slow, grinding battle against the earth. You lean your full weight on the plow handles, trying to keep the blade deep in the sod. The oxen strain against their yokes, their great bodies trembling with effort. The sound is one of constant struggle. Your own grunts of exertion, the creak and groan of the wooden plow, the snapping sound of a particularly thick root giving way, and the low, mournful sigh of the endless prairie wind. The sun is your relentless enemy. There is no shade in this ocean of grass. It beats down on you from a vast, empty sky, cracking your lips and burning the back of your neck. The work is isolating. You can shout, and your voice is simply swallowed by the immense silence of the landscape. Sometimes you see a hawk circling high above, a lonely speck in the blue. It is the only other living thing you might see all day. As you work, you begin to learn the rhythms of this new land. You learn the smell of the air before a thunderstorm. You learn to recognize the tracks of the wild animals that pass in the night, the coyote, the deer, the badger. You learn that the silence is not truly silent. It is filled with the hum of insects, the rustle of the grass, and the song of the prairie birds. After weeks of this relentless labor, you have done it. You have broken a few acres of the prairie. The land is no longer a smooth, unbroken sea of grass. It is now a dark, ugly wound of turned earth, a testament to your struggle. It does not look like much, but to you, it is the most beautiful sight in the world. It is the beginning of a farm. It is the beginning of a future. You are exhausted, your body a landscape of new aches and pains, but as you look out over the dark, plowed earth, you feel a sense of profound and hard-won accomplishment. You have not yet tamed the land, but you have made your mark upon it.
With a small field now broken and ready for a future planting, your attention turns back to the immediate surroundings of your sod house. A home is more than four walls. It is a small circle of order carved out of the wilderness. You begin the slow work of building a proper fence around Sarah's small vegetable garden. You do not have enough wood for a split-rail fence, so you must be resourceful. You spend days walking the prairie, collecting the dried, bleached bones of buffalo that are scattered across the landscape, remnants of the great herds. You find smooth, rounded stones along the bed of the distant creek. You use these, along with chunks of the leftover sod, to build a low, rough wall around the garden. It is not a beautiful wall, but it is a barrier. It is a line drawn in the dirt, a declaration that this small patch of earth is yours, a place to be protected from the wildness that surrounds it. Inside the house, Sarah works her own magic, transforming the dark, earthen box into a home. She uses a mixture of clay and water to plaster the inside walls, smoothing them with her own hands. This simple act seals the small cracks between the sod blocks, keeping out the incessant wind and the small creatures of the prairie, the insects, the mice, the snakes, that would otherwise seek shelter in your walls. She uses the precious wooden planks you brought to build a single, rough-hewn table and two small stools. They are not elegant, but they are a place to sit, a place to share a meal that is not on the ground. She unpacks the few personal items you were able to bring. A single worn Bible, its leather cover soft as cloth. A small hand-carved wooden bird that was her father's. A tin pot for cooking. These small, familiar objects, placed carefully on a makeshift shelf, are anchors to your past, a reminder of the life you left behind. The greatest luxury is the stove. It is a small cast-iron stove you bought in the last settlement, an object that cost you a significant portion of your remaining money, but it is the heart of your new home. It provides warmth against the surprisingly cold prairie nights. It is where Sarah cooks your meals, and its steady, quiet presence is a comfort, a symbol of civilization in this wild place. One evening, as the sun sets, you sit together at your new table in your new home. The stove radiates a gentle warmth. A simple pottage of wild greens and a single precious potato from the garden simmers in the pot. The wind howls outside, a lonely, mournful sound, but inside you are safe. You are warm. You are together. You look around the small, dark room. You see the rough, plastered walls. You see the few simple pieces of furniture. You see your children asleep on their straw pallets in the corner. It is not much. It is a life stripped down to its barest essentials, but it is a life you're building with your own hands on your own land. For the first time, this place does not feel like a patch of empty, intimidating prairie. It feels like a home. With a home established, however humble, the focus of your existence shifts to the land itself. The few acres of dark, broken sod that you have worked so hard to plow are now your entire future. As spring breathes a fragile warmth into the prairie, you begin the process of planting. This is a ritual you know by heart, a dance as old as humanity. But the steps are different here. The earth is not the soft, forgiving soil of the East. It is heavy, dense, and still resistant. You walk the furrows, your bag of precious wheat seeds slung over your shoulder. With a rhythmic flick of your wrist, you cast the seeds, watching them scatter across the dark earth. It is an act of profound hope, an investment of your labor and your faith in the promise of a future harvest. Sarah and the children work in their small garden, planting the corn, beans, and squash that will be your immediate sustenance. Every seed is placed in the ground with a silent prayer. For a few weeks, that hope seems to be rewarded. The prairie, blessed with gentle spring rains, responds. Tiny green shoots, impossibly delicate, push their way up through the dark soil. You watch them grow, day by day, with a feeling of paternal pride. The neat rows of green are a beautiful, ordered pattern against the wild chaos of the surrounding prairie. It is a sign that you can impose your will on this land, that you can make it fruitful. But the prairie has its own will. As spring gives way to summer, the gentle rains cease. The sun, which was a welcome warmth, becomes a relentless, brassy tyrant in a cloudless sky. Day after day, it beats down on your small field. The air becomes hot, dry, and still. The vibrant green of the young plants begins to fade to a pale, thirsty yellow. The rich, dark earth turns to a gray, cracked dust. You watch your future withering before your eyes. Every morning you wake and scan the horizon, desperate for the sight of a single cloud. But the sky remains a vast, empty, and unforgiving blue. Then, one afternoon, you notice a strange darkness on the western horizon. It is not a cloud. It is too low, too dense, and it seems to be moving with a strange, shimmering energy. You hear a sound, a low, buzzing hum that grows steadily louder, a sound like a distant, massive swarm of bees. The children, playing near the cottage, stop and point to the sky. Sarah comes to stand beside you, her hand gripping your arm, her face pale with an unspoken fear. The buzzing grows into a roar, a sound that seems to fill the entire world. And then you see them. It is not a cloud. It is a wave of living creatures. Grasshoppers, millions upon millions of them, a thick, brown, churning mass that blots out the sun, casting an eerie yellow twilight over the prairie. They descend on your field. It is a living plague. They cover everything. They are on every stalk of wheat, every corn leaf, every bean vine. The sound is no longer a buzz. It is a deafening, horrifying cacophony of millions of tiny jaws, a relentless, dry, crackling sound of your future being devoured. You and Sarah run into the field, shouting, waving your arms, trying to drive them away. It is a futile, desperate act. They are a force of nature, an unstoppable tide. They crawl up your legs, their spiny limbs catching on your clothes. They're in your hair, in your mouth. You crush them under your feet, but for every one you kill, 100 more takes its place. The ordeal lasts for what feels like an eternity, but is perhaps only an hour. Then, as quickly as they came, they're gone. The great cloud lifts, moving east, a dark shadow passing over the sun-scorched land. And behind them, they leave only silence and devastation. You stand in the middle of your field, your heart a cold, heavy stone in your chest. The vibrant green is gone. The neat rows have disappeared. All that remains are stripped, naked stalks, chewed down to the very earth. The small, hopeful garden that Sarah tended with such care is gone. The leaves of the corn are shredded lace. The bean vines are bare skeletons. Years of your hope, weeks of your back-breaking labor, all of it devoured in a single afternoon. You look at the setting sun, at the vast, empty prairie that seems to mock you with its indifference. The true nature of this land, its terrible, unforgiving power, has been revealed. And you realize, with a chilling certainty, that the battle for survival has only just begun. Part 3.2. The Lonely Expanse. The days that followed the grasshopper plague are silent and grim. The devastation to your crops is a physical manifestation of your own crushed hopes. For a time, a heavy, unspoken despair settles over your small family. There is nothing to do in the fields.
The land is a barren wasteland of chewed stalks. The work that had filled your days from sunup to sundown is gone, leaving a void that is filled only by the sound of the wind and the vast, empty silence of the prairie. This is a new kind of challenge, one that is in many ways more difficult than the physical labor that came before. It is the challenge of solitude, of an isolation so profound it begins to feel like a physical presence. Your world is reduced to the small circle of your homestead. The dark sod house, the low wall around the ravaged garden, the single lightning-scarred cottonwood tree. Beyond this tiny island of human effort, the world is an endless, unchanging ocean of grass. You can walk for an hour in any direction, and the view will be exactly the same. The horizon is a perfect, unbroken circle, a constant reminder of your own insignificance in this immense landscape. The sky is a vast, empty bowl that seems to press down on you. Some days it is a brilliant, cloudless, and unforgiving blue. Other days it is a uniform, washed-out gray. The sheer scale of it is humbling and at times terrifying. You feel exposed, a tiny, vulnerable creature under the watchful eye of an indifferent God. The wind is your most constant companion. It never, ever stops. It is a ceaseless, whispering song that works its way into your mind. It rustles the tall prairie grass with a dry, papery sound. It whistles around the corners of your sod house, finding its way through the smallest cracks. It is a lonely, mournful sound, the sound of emptiness, and it becomes the soundtrack to your days and nights. In this profound isolation, small routines become the anchors that keep your mind from drifting. You spend your days on small, necessary tasks. You repair the plow, carefully sanding the wooden handles, sharpening the iron blade. You mend the children's worn-out shoes with scraps of leather. Sarah spends her days spinning wool, the rhythmic whir of the spinning wheel a comforting domestic sound in the quiet of the house. In the evenings, you sit by the light of the fire, and she tells the children stories. Not happy fairy tales, but old folk tales from the home you left behind. Stories of clever foxes and foolish wolves. Stories that connect you to a world that now seems as distant and as unreal as the moon. Weeks pass. You see no one. The trail you followed to get here is already being reclaimed by the prairie grass. Then one day a new sight appears on the horizon. It is a small, dark dot that slowly, over the course of an entire morning, resolves itself into a wagon. It is not a pioneer's wagon, like your own, but a smaller, more brightly painted cart pulled by a single sturdy horse. It is a traveling peddler, a rare and welcome visitor. He arrives at your homestead, a small, wiry man with a cheerful face and a fast-talking, friendly manner. He brings with him the news and the gossip of the outside world, of the settlements to the east, of the politics you have long forgotten. He also brings his wares, a treasure trove of small, manufactured luxuries. He opens the back of his cart, and it is like opening a treasure chest. There are bolts of brightly colored cloth, spools of fine thread, sharp steel needles, iron pots and pans, small tins of tea and coffee, and even a few books. To you, who have been living a life stripped down to its barest essentials, these simple objects seem like unbelievable luxuries. You do not have much to trade. You have a few well-made wooden bowls you carved during the long, empty days. Sarah has a small surplus of the soap she makes from animal fat and ash. The peddler inspects your goods with a practiced eye. He agrees to a trade. For your bowls and soap, you get a new steel needle for Sarah, a small bag of precious salt, and a single, hard piece of candy for each of the children. It is a small transaction, but it feels like a great victory. It is a connection to the wider world, a reminder that you are not entirely alone. The peddler stays for an hour,
sharing a cup of your thin, bitter coffee and his own endless supply of stories. Then he's gone, his cart once again a shrinking dot on the horizon. And behind him he leaves a silence that feels even deeper, even more profound than before. His brief, cheerful presence has only served to highlight the crushing, day-to-day reality of your profound and endless loneliness. The fleeting warmth of summer gives way to the crisp, golden light of autumn. The endless sea of green grass slowly turns to a pale, brittle yellow. The days grow shorter, the nights longer and colder. There is a new urgency in the air. Winter is coming, and it is not the gentle, manageable winter of the East. It is the prairie winter, a force of nature spoken of in hushed, fearful tones by the other pioneers you met on the trail. Your life becomes a frantic race against time, a desperate effort to prepare for the long, dark months ahead. You spend your days hunting, not for sport, but for survival. You are not a skilled hunter, but you learn. You learn to track deer, to read the signs they leave in the dry grass. You learn to be patient, to sit for hours in the cold, waiting for a single, clean shot. Every animal you bring down is a victory, a precious store of meat to be salted and smoked, a hide to be tanned and used for warmth. Sarah and the children gather whatever the ravaged land will offer. They collect the last of the hardy root vegetables from the garden. They collect dried buffalo dung, prairie coal, stacking it in great piles against the side of the sod house. This will be your only fuel for the fire, your only source of heat in the coming cold. You work to reinforce the sod house, chinking every crack with a mixture of mud and grass, trying to make your small earthen box as airtight as possible. You bank sod and earth against the outside walls to provide extra insulation. You are like a hibernating animal, preparing your den for a long, deep sleep. Then one day in late autumn, you wake to a world transformed. A profound, absolute silence has fallen. You look out the single, small window. The world is gone, replaced by a uniform, blinding white. The first snow has fallen in the night, a thick, heavy blanket that covers everything, smoothing the sharp edges of the landscape into soft, gentle curves. At first it is beautiful, but as the days turn into weeks, the beauty becomes a prison. The snow is not a fleeting visitor, it is a permanent resident. It piles up in great drifts, pushed by the relentless wind, burying your low, sod house until you are living in a white, frozen cave. To leave the house is a major expedition, a struggle through waist-deep snow in the biting, ferocious cold. Your world shrinks to the four walls of your single dark room. The days become a slow, monotonous rhythm of survival. You feed the fire, carefully rationing your precious supply of prairie coal. You eat your meager, repetitive meals, a thin stew made from salted meat and dried beans, and the hard, dense bread you baked weeks ago. The greatest challenge is the boredom, the crushing monotony of confinement. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do. The same four walls, the same faces, day after day, week after week. The only sound is the constant, mournful howl of the wind outside, a sound that seems to get inside your very bones. You feel a sense of claustrophobia, of being buried alive. Then comes the blizzard. It is not just snow, it is a force of pure, white violence. The wind shrieks like a banshee, a sound so loud it drowns out all other thought. The fine, dry snow is driven with such force that it finds its way through the tiniest cracks in your walls, a constant, fine, cold dust that settles on everything. You cannot see more than a few feet from your own window. The world has disappeared into a churning, white chaos. For days you were trapped. You huddle together around the small iron stove, the only point of warmth and light in your dark, frozen world. You tell stories. You sing songs.
You do anything to keep the fear at bay, to keep the crushing, overwhelming power of the storm outside. The dwindling pile of fuel becomes your clock, a measure of how much time you have left. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the wind dies down. The silence that follows is as profound and as shocking as the noise that came before. You dig your way out of the snowdrift that had buried your door. You emerge into a world that is breathtakingly beautiful and terrifyingly hostile. The landscape is a smooth, sculpted expanse of pure white,
glittering under a pale, cold sun. It is a world wiped clean, a world without life. You have survived the first blizzard, but you know that winter is far from over. The long, dark months of cold and hunger stretch out before you, a great white unknown sea that you must somehow find the strength to cross.
The winter does not release its grip easily. It is a slow, grudging retreat, a great beast reluctant to let go of the world it has held in its icy jaws for so long. There are more snows, more long, cold nights where the wind howls like a hungry wolf outside your small earthen home. The pile of fuel, your precious store of dried buffalo dung, dwindles to almost nothing. You ration it with the care of a miser counting his gold, adding only a few pieces at a time to the fire, just enough to keep the deepest, most dangerous chill at bay. Your stores of salted meat and dried beans are nearly gone. The monotony of the diet is a constant, dull reality. You have forgotten the taste of fresh vegetables, of anything that is not preserved, salted, or dried. The confinement begins to wear on you all. The small, dark space of the sod house, once a refuge, now feels like a prison. The same four walls, the same faces, day after day, week after week. Tempers grow short. Small annoyances become major sources of friction. The children, cooped up for months, are restless and irritable, their energy a buzzing, trapped thing in the small space. The silence between you and Sarah is no longer a comfortable one. It is heavy with unspoken fears and frustrations. This is the psychological battle of winter, a test of endurance as demanding as any physical hardship. You spend long hours simply staring at the rough texture of the sod wall, your mind a blank, weary slate. Then, one day in what must be March, you noticed a change. It is not something you see, but something you feel in the air as you step outside for your daily task of checking your snares. The bite of the cold is less sharp. The air, for the first time in months, does not feel like it is actively trying to freeze the moisture in your lungs. It is still cold, but it is a softer, gentler cold, a cold that holds the faintest, almost imaginary promise of warmth. A few days later, you hear a new sound. It is the soft, steady drip, drip, drip of water from the melting snow and ice on the edge of your roof. In the profound silence of the prairie, the sound is as loud and as clear as a bell. It is the most hopeful sound you have ever heard. It is the sound of the thaw. The change is slow, almost imperceptible at first, and then it accelerates. The great white blanket of snow that has covered your world for months begins to recede. It shrinks away from the walls of your house, revealing patches of dark, muddy, and blessedly real earth. The prairie, which had been a silent white desert, begins to awaken. You see the first tentative green shoots of new grass pushing their way up through the mud, a sign of an impossible, indomitable life. You hear the song of a meadowlark, a sound so clear and full of liquid joy it almost makes you weep. It is the first bird song you have ever heard in what feels like a lifetime. With the return of the light and the warmth, a sliver of hope returns to you and your family. The oppressive, psychological weight of the winter begins to lift.
You are able to spend more time outside, your faces turned toward the weak but welcome sun, your lungs filling with fresh, clean air that does not burn. The first task of spring is to assess the damage the long winter has caused. You inspect the roof of the sod house, patching the places where the ice has taken its toll. You check on your meager supply of seeds, stored carefully in a wooden box, praying that they have remained dry and safe from the mice that shared your home during the cold months. To your immense relief, they are safe. They are your future.
The thaw has come, but it has not brought abundance. It has revealed the stark reality of your situation. The last of the salted meat is gone. The bottom of the flour barrel is visible. The winter has been a long siege, and while you have survived it, you are emerging thin, weak, and hungry. The new garden Sarah has planted will not yield anything for weeks. You need food, and you need it now. You need fresh meat. You take down the old rifle from its pegs on the wall. You clean it with a practiced, deliberate slowness. The smell of the cleaning oil is a sharp, clean scent in the small cottage. Your movements are stiff. Your body has not yet shed the aches and the lethargy of the long, dark months of confinement. Your leg, where the bone was broken, throbs with a dull, persistent ache, a reminder of the fragility of your own body. You step outside into the cool, damp air of the early spring morning. The world feels new, reborn. The sky is a pale, clean blue. The prairie grass, once a uniform dead yellow, is now dotted with the vibrant, almost shocking green of new growth. The air is alive with the sound of birdsong, a sound you had almost forgotten. But this is not a day for admiring the beauty of the spring. This is a day for hunting, and hunting is not a sport. It is a matter of life and death. You walk not with the confident stride of a hunter, but with the slow, patient gait of a man who cannot afford to waste a single ounce of energy. You head towards a small grove of cottonwood trees that you have seen near the creek, a place where you have seen deer tracks in the mud. The journey is a slow, methodical process of observation. You are not just walking, you are reading the landscape. Your eyes, now accustomed to the subtle language of the prairie, scan the ground for signs. You see the fresh tracks of a rabbit, the disturbed earth where a badger has been digging for roots. You move with a profound quietness, your feet making almost no sound on the damp earth. You are a ghost in this reawakening world. The wind is a constant presence. You are acutely aware of its direction, knowing that a single careless shift in the breeze could carry your scent to your prey and end the hunt before it has even begun. You keep the wind in your face, a cool, damp breath against your skin. You reach the edge of the cottonwood grove. You do not enter it. You find a place to wait, a small depression in the ground, concealed by a cluster of last year's tall, dead grass. You settle in, your body low to the ground, the rifle resting on your knees, and then you wait. This is the heart of the hunt, the waiting, the stillness, the silence. The world seems to slow down. Your senses become heightened. You can hear the rustle of a mouse in the dead leaves a dozen paces away. You can see the intricate pattern of the bark on the nearest tree. You can feel the slow, steady beat of your own heart. Minutes stretch into what feels like an hour. The sun climbs higher, its warmth beginning to penetrate your thin clothes. A sense of doubt begins to creep in. Perhaps you have chosen the wrong spot. Perhaps the animals are still deep in their winter dens. Then you see it, a flicker of movement in the trees. You freeze, your body becoming as still as the rock beside you. A doe steps out of the grove into the open grassland. She is beautiful, elegant, and impossibly graceful.
Her coat is the color of the winter grass. She moves cautiously, her large dark eyes scanning the landscape, her ears twitching, testing the air. Your heart begins to pound, a slow, heavy drum in your chest. This is the moment. A single mistake, a single sound, and she will be gone. You raise the heavy rifle to your shoulder, your movements infinitesimally slow. The iron of the rifle is cold against your cheek. You line up the sights, your breath held, and your entire world narrowing to the small vital space between the front and rear sights of the rifle. The doe takes another step, lowering her head to nibble at a patch of new grass. It is the moment you have been waiting for. You exhale, slowly, and your finger tightens on the trigger. The explosion of the rifle is a shocking, violent violation of the morning's peace. The sound cracks across the prairie, and a cloud of thick, white, acrid smoke erupts from the barrel, obscuring your vision for a moment. When the smoke clears, the doe is on the ground. You do not feel triumph. You do not feel the thrill of the kill. You feel only a profound and overwhelming sense of relief. It is the relief of a man who knows he will be able to feed his family for another week. You approach the fallen animal, your legs unsteady. You say a quiet, silent prayer of thanks to the animal for its life and to the God who provided it. The work that follows is hard and bloody, but it is a necessary work. You field dress the animal with your knife, your hands sure and practiced. The journey back to the cottage is a grueling ordeal, the weight of the deer a heavy burden on your already aching shoulders. But when you arrive and Sarah sees you, her face breaks into a smile of pure, unadulterated joy. That night, for the first time in months, you eat fresh meat roasted over the fire. It is the best meal you have ever tasted. It is the taste of survival. It is the taste of a new beginning.
With the immediate threat of starvation abated by the successful hunt, a new need makes itself felt. It is not a need for food or shelter, but for connection. You have been isolated for the entire winter, a small island of humanity in a vast, empty ocean. You need supplies you cannot make yourself, salt above all, but also perhaps a new iron pot or thread for mending clothes. And more than that, you need to see another human face, to hear another voice, to remind yourselves that you are still a part of the world. You decide to make the long 2-day journey back to the small settlement where the land office is located. The preparations are simple. You load the wagon with the tanned hides from the deer and a few smaller pelts from animals you have trapped. These are your currency. Sarah packs a small amount of roasted meat and bread. The children, who have not left the homestead in months, are almost vibrating with a nervous excitement. To them, a trip to a town of a dozen rough shacks is an adventure of epic proportions. The journey itself is a revelation. The last time you traveled this path, the prairie was a sea of monotonous dying grass under a cold autumn sky. Now it is transformed. The world is a vibrant, living green. Great swaths of colorful wildflowers, blue, yellow, and purple, are scattered across the landscape. The air is filled with the sound of birdsong and the buzzing of insects. It is the same land, but it is a different world, a world of life and promise. When you finally see the settlement on the horizon, it looks different too. It is no longer a frightening alien outpost. It feels like a beacon of civilization, a welcome sight. You guide your wagon down the settlement's single, wide, muddy street. The place has grown slightly since your last visit. There are few new sod houses, and a proper blacksmith's forge has been built, the sound of his hammer a welcome, rhythmic sign of industry. You stop in front of the general store, the same building that houses the land office. The storekeeper, a thin, weary man with kind eyes, remembers you.
He comes out to greet you, and for the first time in months, you have a real conversation with someone outside your own family. The words feel strange and clumsy in your mouth at first. You exchange news. He tells you of the new families that have arrived, of the plans to build a small church, of the rumors of conflict with the native tribes further west. You, in turn, tell him of your winter. You speak of the blizzards, of the grasshopper plague, of the profound, crushing silence. Other settlers, hearing of your arrival, come over to talk. They are men and women like you, their faces weathered by the sun and the wind, their hands calloused by hard labor. A quiet, unspoken bond exists between you all. You are survivors. You share stories of the winter, a litany of hardships and small victories. One family tells of losing their ox to the cold. Another tells of a prairie fire that nearly destroyed their home. But they have all survived. There is a strength in this shared experience, a comfort in knowing that you are not alone in your struggle. The trading is a slow, careful, and formal process. You lay out your deer hides and pelts. The storekeeper inspects them, his fingers testing the quality of the tanning. He makes you an offer in credit at his store. You haggle, a quiet, respectful negotiation. You finally agree on a price. With your credit, you buy the essentials. A large bag of salt, more precious than gold out here, a new sturdy iron pot to replace the one that cracked during the winter, a few spools of strong thread for Sarah, and, as a rare, almost unthinkable luxury, a small bag of sugar for the children. You spend the night in the settlement, sleeping in the back of your wagon. The sounds of the small town, the distant laughter from the saloon, the barking of a dog, the murmur of voices, are a comfort after the profound silence of the prairie. The next morning you begin the journey home. As you travel, you feel a change within yourself. The fear and the crushing loneliness of the first few months are gone, replaced by a quiet, steady confidence. The prairie is no longer an enemy to be conquered. It is your home, a place of hardship, yes, but also of a fierce, stark beauty. You are no longer a stranger here. You are a settler. You are a survivor. You are beginning to belong.
You arrive back at your homestead. After the relative noise and bustle of the small settlement, the quiet of your own land feels like a welcome embrace. The sod house, once a symbol of your desperate struggle, now looks like a proper home, a small, reassuring anchor in the vastness of the prairie. You take your plow, its iron blade cleaned of the winter's rust, and you walk out to your small, broken field. The ground is soft now, no longer frozen solid, ready to be worked. You yoke the oxen, Buck and Bright, who seem to have a new energy, a new strength after the long confinement of winter. You begin the work of preparing the earth for the new planting season. The work is still hard, your body still weak from the long months of inactivity and meager rations, but this time it is a hopeful labor. It is a labor of beginning again, a partnership with the awakening earth. One evening, as the last of the snow melts away, leaving the prairie a patchwork of rich, dark brown and vibrant new green, you stand outside your small home and look out over your land. You have survived. You have endured the back-breaking labor of the first plowing, the devastation of the grasshopper plague, the crushing loneliness of the autumn, and the brutal, soul-testing siege of the winter. You have changed. Your face is thinner, your skin weathered to a deep brown by the sun and the wind. There are new lines around your eyes, lines of worry, but also of resilience. You look at your hands. They are calloused, scarred, the hands of a man who lives by his own labor, who wrests his existence directly from the soil. You look at your home, a simple mound of earth, but a home that you built yourself, a shelter that saw you through the worst of the storm. You look at your field,
a small patch of dark, promising soil in an ocean of wild grass. The journey is not over. You know that there will be more droughts, more blizzards, more hardships. The prairie does not give up its secrets or its bounty easily. But you have faced the worst it can throw at you, and you are still standing. You have learned its rhythms, its dangers, and its subtle, quiet beauty. You are a pioneer, not an adventurer in a story, not a hero from a song. You are a simple farmer, a husband, a father. But you have done something extraordinary. You have taken a piece of the vast, empty wilderness, a place of profound silence and indifference, and with nothing but your own 2 hands, your own sweat, and an unbreakable will to survive, you have begun to make a life. The sun sets, and the first star of the evening appears in the clear twilight sky. The air is cool and smells of damp, awakening earth. Sarah comes to stand beside you, her hand finding yours. Her presence is a silent, solid comfort. You look at her, at the strength in her eyes, and you know that you are not alone in this. You are home.